You think you've got my number figured out? A motive born in drought and brevity. And if I'm not the soul of your design, I blatantly decline your remedy. Don't box me in, don't, or I'll leave. I'd rather be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else than your machine. I wasn't always just a single shade, a palette full of gray in reverie. And I can burn it brighter than the sun. I have a golden gun inside of me. Don't box me in, don't, or I'll leave. I'd rather be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else. And if I fall behind, ignoring all the signs, and if I lose the fight, I still rage against the night. Don't box I'd rather be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else than your machine.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Wednesday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Wednesday. Welcome, everybody. I hope we're all hanging in there. Derry Bennett, welcome. Michael Haster, welcome. Folks, we got to keep today's stream slightly short. My nose has been running nonstop all day, and I think it's mostly due to like the cold. So we'll just try to get through this stream. Sup? Hanging in there. Trump ends DEI. Yep, we'll talk about it briefly. We do have an article about this. Done experiencing inequity. Yeah, there you go. DEI. No more DEI, folks. You know, really dealing with the important stuff. Take some vitamin C. That's a good idea. That is a fantastic idea. All right, folks. Couple of things. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it. And if you want to support the channel, there is a new Substack article, folks. Go check it out. Hit the exclamation mark Substack and go subscribe. It is free. There is a cool new article out there. So make sure that you go check it out. And it's also you can also share it as well. So definitely consider checking that out. It is free. Also consider checking out the merch store and hitting exclamation mark tip if you want to support the channel directly. And join the Discord, folks, to keep up with the channel for any news. I appreciate you guys being here. Welcome. Elon Musk doing Nazi salutes and a convicted felon president pardoning the Proud Boys and everyone who desecrated our capital is a dream come true for every Republican voter. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, Captain Cringe. For those of you on the YouTube, I appreciate you guys there. Thank you. Thank you, and keep hitting the like button. I appreciate it. All right, folks, let's get started. We have quite the ground to cover. I'm not sure we'll be able to deviate that much. We'll see. We'll see how much we can cover. Hey, Ladybug, welcome. Welcome, welcome. All right, folks, let's get started. I'll try to come up with a cool topic to deviate the show with. Give me a minute. Cats, maybe? Ah, I got 3 of them. I think we should probably start with this.
Tomatoes here in the Ruskin, Florida area, as well as the Homestead. We grow tomatoes here in the Ruskin, Florida area, as well as the Homestead, Florida area. The DeMare Company is an almost 90-year-old company. I am a 3rd generation along with my brothers and cousins. The company actually started in Boston with my grandfather and his 2 brothers. What motivates me to stay in the business and what excites me of farming is being outside. And watching crops grow and produce product is exciting to me.
That was Florida farmer Tony DeMare, and as you saw, his enthusiasm for watching crops grow was truly palpable, and he's definitely not dying on the inside or feeling any existential dread or anything like that. But the reason why we're talking about him today is because he is a Republican who voted for Donald Trump and is now worried that he might get exactly what he voted for. So on Monday, after Donald Trump was inaugurated, he signed multiple executive orders regarding immigration, one declaring an emergency at the southern border, another designating cartels as terrorist groups, which authorizes him to bomb them in Mexico, mind you, so that's a little bit worrying. He also suspended refugee programs, which resulted in the flight cancellation of more than 1,600 Afghans, which means they now can't come even though they were cleared for settlement, and their lives are in limbo and could be in danger as a result. He reinstated the Remain in Mexico policy, and he also took aim at the 14th Amendment, which is birthright citizenship, by ordering federal agencies to not recognize babies who were born here as U.S. citizens if their parents were undocumented. Furthermore, the Wall Street Journal reports that Trump's mass deportations are set to begin next Tuesday, starting with a large-scale raid in Chicago with around 200 officers. Now, before mass deportation officially kicks off next week, farmers like Tony DeMare are pleading with Trump to not go through with it, because after DeSantis cracked down on immigrants in Florida, I'm assuming he voted for DeSantis too, well, DeMare's farm was negatively affected by it. So if Trump follows through with even more deportations, Tony feels like his farm is in genuine danger if he loses even more of his immigrant workforce. Bloomberg reports, Florida tomato grower Tony DeMare is all for President-elect Donald Trump slapping tariffs on the Mexican farmers who undercut him by paying workers a fraction of what he does. He wants to stop illegal border crossings and likes the idea of deporting migrants convicted of serious crimes. But when it comes to Trump's border promises to expel all 11 million undocumented people living in the country, DeMare thinks it would be a disaster for American farmers. Quote, we have to secure our borders south and north, but you have to have a workforce in this country, said DeMare, whose family has 4,000 acres of tomato farms in Florida and California. There's no doubt that this is going to restrict and put pressure on farming and many other industries that rely on this workforce. DeMare, who voted for Trump, has 85 guest workers from Mexico plucking plump tomatoes at his family's fields near Homestead, south of Miami on the edge of the Everglades. A lot of people left Florida for Georgia, north, scared, DeMare said, as he walked one of his fields this week. Farmers had to let their crops rot. Well, ain't that a bitch? You got your face eaten by leopards after voting for the leopards eating people's faces party. Good job. And what really pisses me off about this guy is that he has no concern whatsoever about the well-being of the immigrants that he's exploiting.
Right, like that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, the dude only cares because it affects his pocket directly. So other than that, like, if it didn't affect his pockets directly, like, he would be all for like mass deportations. So like, whatever, fuck this guy. And like, again, like, this issue isn't really an immigration issue. This is a labor issue, okay? Pay your people more. Pay your people a living wage, okay? Whether they're foreign workers or American workers, everyone deserves a living wage.
He's not worried about them at all. He's only worried about himself, which isn't necessarily surprising, but I mean, it speaks to how selfish we are as a country. But he's not alone, because a recent poll conducted by Axios and Ipsos found that most Americans widely support mass deportation. 66% favor deportation of all undocumented immigrants. 38% support using the military to track down immigrants to deport. That's fascist.
That's pretty freaking worrying. How much did he say? 30 something? 38%. That is an uncomfortable amount of people who are okay with a military crackdown, using the military to crack down on immigration. That is a uncomfortable amount of people. That is not great. Not great at all.
Down immigrants to deport. That's fascist. 34% support deporting immigrants brought here as children, i.e. dreamers. Another 34% support deportations, even if it means that families will be separated and people are sent to countries that aren't their countries.
How much was that? 34%. I mean, it kind of tracks with the 38% that are willing to use the military. So yeah, I mean, if 38% of the people polled here were willing to use the military to do this crackdown, then like, yeah, it stands to reason that about the same number would be fine if like the families get deported too, or families get separated.
Be separated and people are sent to countries that aren't their countries of origin, which means just random countries. They're just going to be stranded somewhere randomly. 28% support using defense money to pay for deportation. And finally, 11% favor deportation of legal immigrants. That number is 18% for Republicans, by the way. In other words, Americans are becoming increasingly hateful towards immigrants because they've been led to believe that immigrants, along with trans people, of course, are the cause of all of their problems. And if they weren't here, everything would be copacetic. Americans think that they can't find jobs because immigrants are taking all of them. In actuality, immigrants are disproportionately taking jobs that Americans don't want. Stoop jobs, like harvesting fruits, harvesting vegetables, which is why farmers like Tony are worried that his business might be in jeopardy if all of the immigrant workers are actually deported, because there just wouldn't be enough American workers to do the job that immigrants are doing right now, which is why he's scared. And even if there were enough Americans to do those jobs, he doesn't want to hire them because then he'd be required by law to pay them more than he pays immigrants, since our immigration system literally lets people like him exploit foreign workers. But it begs the question, why would he vote for somebody running on mass deportation if he knows it's going to hurt his business?
Yeah, I mean, it's a cult, man. It's a cult. It doesn't matter. Like, logic, rationale, out the window. Hey, SV Harkin, welcome. I love Mike. He's a sassy empath, indeed.
And we kind of got our answer in the article, right? He supports mass deportation. He wants them to go away. He just wants there to be an exception for the immigrants who are crucial to his business. In other words, he's a selfish prick. But it's interesting that, there's this talk of immigrants taking American jobs when people like Tony, who rely on exploitation of immigrant labor, are admitting that Americans aren't doing these jobs. But the idea that immigrants are a threat to American jobs is a distraction. And the actual threat to everyone's jobs, it's not immigrants, it's robots. As Crystal Ball points out, Republicans are telling you immigrants are a threat to your livelihood while aggressively developing the tech to make your labor irrelevant. And as you can see, she's responding to news that Trump is investing billions in AI. But I mean, this is the game that Republicans play. They scapegoat immigrants and marginalize people to distract you from the real problems that you're facing.
This is what Ivy League universities you can get.
Yep, this is completely a distraction and a scapegoat.
Go out in public
because they don't want you to think about this as a labor issue, right? They want you to think about this as a culture war issue. The crazy Democrats who are socialist are bringing in the scary brown people to take your jobs, to take up space in the emergency rooms, whatever. Like fear, 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 so that people don't actually start talking about the real issue that's underneath all of this, which is capitalism.
Because scary criminal immigrants are making the streets less safe, even though statistically they commit less crime than citizens. They'll also tell you that, you can't even have pets now because immigrants are abducting them and they're eating them, even though that is a lie made up by neo-Nazis originally to justify deportation.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats.
Of immigrants that are here legally, I should say. But these lies, they have real consequences aside from furthering a particular xenophobic agenda. Haitian migrants in Springfield faced bomb threats after Donald Trump and J.D. Vance spread those lies about them on national television. So even if they don't get deported, their lives are still being made miserable by these lies that Republicans spread about immigrants. But, the immigrants who are trying to come here legally after our foreign policy destabilized their countries are now being turned away, which is bad because it's snuffing out the dreams that they had of having a better life here. And we always talk about immigrants in the abstract, right? But I want to remind everyone that we're talking about human beings here with hopes and dreams just like us.
Yep.
We're suffering because of America's rising xenophobia. For example, here's how immigrants reacted when they found out that Donald Trump shut down CBP One. This is an app that people have used to apply for status here, asylum and whatnot. But since that app has been shut down, that meant that all of the people who had appointments, those were canceled. And one woman was just hours away from getting seen, and it was canceled. And this is her reaction.
This is so freaking disgusting, man. I like it. It is shocking. Okay, not surprising because we know who these people are. They've been telling us for years now, but it's just shocking to see. Like at no point should any of this be normalized. This in my opinion, every time I see this, it is shocking. It is abhorrent. This is not okay. Pirate Ninja, welcome. We are on the wildest timeline indeed.
She was this close, and she watched her dream of a better life slip away from her like that. And it is genuinely heartbreaking, but I wish I could say that I had faith that the American people would come to their senses after watching Trump inflict mass pain and suffering on immigrants through his fascist-ass mass deportation policy. But I'll be honest, I no longer have any faith that Americans are going to see the light even after they witness the inevitable brutality that's about to unfold. I mean, if you look at some of the replies to that video that I just showed you, you'll see commenters laughing at that woman's pain. And, even right-wing influencers like Chaya Raichik chiming in with some laughing emojis herself as if it's one big joke. We are a deeply immoral and racist country, and trying to appeal to the humanity of these people is not going to be effective because, in truth, Americans literally couldn't care less about anything or anyone.
Correct.
Unless it affects them directly. And I'm not saying that to be overly cynical. I'm saying that because we need to understand that Americans will only care about the pain and suffering of others insofar as it impacts them in a concrete way. And that's why we need to change the way that we frame these things. It goes back to the farmer, Tony DeMare, who's now worried about how Trump's deportation of immigrants is going to affect him, not the immigrants. And now he kind of cares about mass deportation and doesn't want it to happen. So I think that we need to be realistic when it comes to the tactics that we use to persuade Americans. And we have to explain how their anti-immigrant votes are actually against their self-interest. They just don't know it. As Politico reports, Americans hate high prices. Mass deportations could spark new surges. And they go on to explain...
Well, I think that even if you could effectively convince, or I should say, effectively convey the message that this is actually against your own interests, Like, I think that these people, these particular people, simply don't care. And even if they are being hurt, so long as the bad brown people go away, like it's kind of a wash for them, you know. So I don't know. I don't think that, like, you could try and appeal to their self interests, but I think that for the most part, and I'm sure like maybe some will have a reaction to that, will respond to that, but like I would bet, or I would estimate, I would guess that the majority of people don't really of these people don't really care. They don't care that it's against their own self-interest. They care that the brown people are getting what's coming to them or whatever. Cruelty is the point, correct. Even if it's against their own self-interest, it doesn't matter. Exactly correct.
If Trump follows through with this mass deportation scheme, the costs could be enormous. Economists warned that grocery prices would climb as agricultural production slowed. It would drive up housing construction costs and worsen staffing shortages at nursing homes and home health businesses, pushing healthcare costs even higher. A lot depends on how many workers are ultimately deported or if outmigration accelerates and the arrival of new working-age migrants slows. So unfortunately, these are the kinds of stories that you have to share with Americans to get through to them. Deporting immigrants is going to make the cost go up, not down. And they're too stupid to understand the way that this is going to affect them. You know, if Tony's tomatoes rot because the immigrant workers he's exploiting are deported and there's less tomatoes overall, the price of tomatoes is obviously going to increase as demand goes up, which is going to affect, you know, the cost of tomatoes and tomato products, tomato sauce, ketchup, cheeseburgers, and so on. Those farmers are going to pass that cost onto you, the consumers. Now imagine, you know, if it wasn't tomatoes. Consider the impact of mass deportation on a bigger scale. How many other industries this would affect? Overall, it's going to result in Americans paying more. That is how, unfortunately, we have to explain it to Americans. And I really fucking hate that we have to talk about human rights issues in economic terms. That to me is disgusting. You know, we can't just say, hey, free healthcare is going to save.
Well, that's the thing though. Like under a capitalist system, that's kind of like par for the course, right? Like that's how this goes. We think of things, including human life, in dollar signs, right?
$68,000 lives per year, we have to code it in business speak and say, well, you know, it'll be a tax cut for small businesses and save Americans money. You can't just say ending wars is good because killing is bad. You have to say if we end wars, we'll shrink the national debt. Or, you know, if we don't deport immigrants, it'll keep costs low. The fact that Americans aren't convinced by human rights alone says so much about our country. And we can chalk it up to propaganda, hyper-partisan politicians. All of that, I think, is responsible because we're all just products of our environment. But at the end of the day, if you as an individual feel nothing at the thought of fellow human beings suffering, I think you need to actually be a little bit introspective and ask yourself why that is. How you can see that woman's tears and laugh in response to it. I know that, like, I'm not talking to my audience, but people, you know, who aren't going to hear this message that need to hear it in particular. Now, I often credit Republicans for the rise of collective stupidity and cruelty, but in all honesty, they're not acting alone here. For years, Democrats have let Republicans monopolize discourse on this issue, and they just haven't pushed back. And now so many Americans just assume that we had open borders under Biden, and they believe that immigrants are causing all this crime and they're the cause of all of our problems. And that is a failure on media, sure, but it's also a failure of the supposed leaders in the Democratic Party who are supposed to be the opposition party. You know, they are not only letting these lies about immigrants go unchallenged, but they're often participating in the marginalization and oppression of immigrants themselves. And I say this because 12 Senate Democrats voted with Republicans, by the way, for the Laken Riley Act, including John Fetterman, Ruben Gallego. This is supposed to be Kyrsten Sinema's, quote, progressive replacement, by the way. Mark Kelly, John Ossoff, Alyssa Slotkin, Mark Warner, Raphael Warnock, among others. And the senators from Arizona voted for this in spite of 200 Arizona Democrats signing a letter pleading with them to not support this draconian piece of legislation. But they did it anyway. Because that's our country, right? Whenever you see bipartisanship, it's usually a sign that both parties are teaming up to fuck more people over. They never join forces to do something good for us. It's always to cause more pain and suffering on the American people. Now, if you don't know why the Laken Riley Act is bad, Mark Joseph Stern broke it down.
Yeah, that's pretty true, actually. That's a fantastic point. The only time, like, the only time that there's, like, some serious bipartisanship is, like, when it comes to war. When it comes to more money for war, there's usually pretty good consensus. And when it comes to making sure that the capital class has more, then yeah, I mean, bipartisanship shows up. But when it comes to actually doing something for the American people, yeah, all of a sudden that disappears. When it comes to giving people health care, not a thing. When it comes to making sure that people have education, not there. Crickets. When it comes to making sure that people can afford housing, nothing. No bipartisanship there.
Down in an article for Slate where he explains, quote, this cross-party support might create the impression that this legislation really is what Republicans claim, a common sense fix to a broken system that will keep undocumented criminals off the streets. But that is a gross mischaracterization. Rather, the Laken Riley Act would impose sweeping changes to the immigration system that raise serious constitutional concerns. It would penalize immigrants who live and work in the United States legally, subjecting them to indefinite detention without being convicted or even charged with a crime. And it would transfer a massive amount of power to state attorneys general and district court judges who could effectively wrest control over immigration enforcement from the executive branch. These judges could, upon a state's request, ban the issuance of all visas to residents of entire countries like India. In short, under the guise of punishing a small number of law-breaking undocumented immigrants, the act would curtail legal immigration and subject law-abiding immigrants to detention and deportation. It is baffling that so many Democrats would sign on to such a cruel and constitutionally dubious scheme. It is baffling, but I mean, this is the state of American politics where both parties are shifting to the right. Republicans certainly have shifted to the right on this issue and all issues, but Democrats have followed them to the right. I mean, when you look at the way that Kamala Harris ran her 2024 campaign, she effectively ran as a Republican on this issue. She was trying to out-border hawk Trump on the border, which is a great strategy, by the way. But I mean, it's alarming to see so many politicians.
Yeah, I mean, like, even as far as just a few years ago, like, what, 5? No, I want to say like 6 years ago, right before Biden won the 2020 election. The language that was being used in immigration from the Democratic side was completely different. Like, in 2019, the Democratic Party's official position or platform on immigration was that they wanted a path to citizenship. Cognizant welcome bipartisan, both parties teaming up to screw you from both sides. Precisely.
Republicans and Democrats go along with the piece of legislation that is just downright draconian. And there's a plethora of reasons why this legislation is bad, and I would implore you to read Mark Joseph Stern's full article because he really does break it down comprehensively. But I just want to go over some of the main reasons why, again, this is bad. First and foremost, it takes away due process rights of immigrants, which they are entitled to, by the way. Second of all, it would impact all immigrants, including legal ones who are granted amnesty or who are refugees, and it would affect their ability to travel internationally while they're waiting for their green cards. Furthermore, guess who else it would affect? Dreamers. At any age, mind you. Americans used to support dreamers before hating them, but it would affect them. For those of you who still care about dreamers, they're going to be fucked over by this. These are people who were brought here before, when they were children, by their parents. So they didn't choose to be here. They were here at a young age. And one example that Stern gives that was really chilling is that if, say, an 11-year-old stole a candy bar and was arrested for it, this law would require that child to be detained. In other words, your life could be ruined if you commit a single act of petty theft or you make one mistake. Even if you're a kid, it doesn't matter. And finally, this also gives state attorneys general the ability to literally usurp the federal government's prosecutorial discretion on this issue. And this is a little bit more complicated, but basically, it would enable fascist governors around the country, like Greg Abbott, for example, to override the federal government and set his own agenda when it comes to immigration and deportations. State attorneys general could sue the federal government and clog up the federal court system, and judges would be required to grant their requests if this bill becomes a law. And so many Democrats are greenlighting this draconian crackdown. It is fascist, and so many people in our government are supporting it, including people who claim to be progressives. I mean, Raphael Warnock is literally a pastor. What does the Bible say about sojourners, Pastor Warnock? I mean...
Yeah, this is pretty freaking depressing, man. Not gonna lie. Seriously, you would likely have less suffering just being 50 different countries, and you could go to war with yourselves as much as you want.
You can't trust anyone, because the second they sense that their state is shifting to the right, they sell out all of the people who voted for them to chase that. Rather than fighting and saying, no, actually, we support immigrants. Here's what we should do instead. Robust immigration reform with the pathway to citizenship. They say, you know what? Fuck the immigrants. Fuck them. If a kid steals a candy bar, fuck that kid. This is what Democrats and Republicans are saying. Not all Democrats, to be fair, but, 12. That's embarrassing. Where's Chuck Schumer? Where's the leadership to rein them in? Is there no penalties for them voting for fascist legislation that fucks over immigrants? Of course there isn't. But just think about how far we've fallen. Ronald Reagan, perhaps one of, if not the worst president in American history, granted amnesty to millions of undocumented immigrants. These days, a Democrat wouldn't do that. And that is truly shameful. Years of nonstop fear-mongering and propaganda about immigrants has culminated in this moment where a Gestapo-like force is about to violently detain and deport millions of people to the delight of Americans who think that that's somehow going to improve their lives in a meaningful way or bring down costs or some bullshit reasons. But after all the immigrants are gone and things continue to get worse, who will Americans blame next? Trans people? Disabled people? Black people? When will Americans finally wake the fuck up and realize that the only minority who's actually responsible for their pain and suffering are the oligarchs and the CEOs who were at Trump's inauguration, who pay politicians and media outlets to distract you with lies about immigrants while they rob you blind? Stop falling for it and realize that you have more in common with every immigrant than you do with a single rich person.
True. True. All right, let's shift gears here. Let's do something a little more on the fun side, shall we?
Let's check in with Tim Pool. Tim Pool on the TikTok ban. He must be very, very mad with Donald Trump right now. Just to give you an idea of what happened with TikTok, if you are not...
yeah, free speech warrior, Tim Pool. Let's do it.
A TikToker, and I don't want to pretend like I am. I'm not. We do have a Majority Report TikTok, and I do have a TikTok myself somewhere. I'm not even sure what it's called, because I just use it occasionally to see if I can spy on my kids, and I can't because I don't know how to operate it. But my kids got a message on yesterday.
Sam. Come on, man.
From TikTok, we are closing down. We're hoping that President Trump will be able to save us. Now, understand, Biden had already said, leaving it up to the Trump presidency, which in and of itself was also dodgy. I don't know why he could have done that or how he could have done it. Remember, we were supposedly banning this because of it was a national security issue. And the Biden administration's like, well, national security, but I'm going to punt to the next president. And then TikTok was like, oh, our owners invited into the skybox at the inauguration with the other billionaires. What are we going to do to placate Donald Trump? We're going to write that only Donald Trump can save us. And then when we come back online, we'll say he worked. I mean, this is going to be the formula for a lot of stuff, dude. Right here. This is it. There's a meteor coming at incredible speed at the Earth. It's going to impact tomorrow morning unless I do something as president of the United States. Half an hour later, I did it. I shot it out of the sky. You didn't hear it because it was so far away. We used a very quiet laser to do it. You're welcome. I saved your life. So TikTok is back up. Trump has given it 75 days. I don't know under what authority he has to create this type of window with a new commission to look at it. But his proposal is somebody should get together, buy TikTok, and the U.S. should kick in half. I'm sort of open to that, but how about this? How about the U.S. just owns it outright? Let's just own these things. Here is Tim Pool, though, opining over this before he understands what's going on, I guess.
The nation's highest court said in the opinion that while data collection and
I mean, like, yeah, it should, like, all these, like, massive social media platforms should be public. Should be owned by the public. JINA won't sell it.
analysis is a common practice in the digital age. The sheer size of TikTok and its susceptibility to foreign adversary control, together with the vast swaths of sensitive data the platform collects, poses a national security concern. Full stop. It's not just that, ladies and gentlemen. It is the algorithm. They don't show this garbage to their kids. If even 1% of our younger generation are...
Here's the fascinating thing about this. If TikTok and the Chinese manipulate their algorithm any differently than Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or I would be largely shocked. They're all going for the same thing. Now, it may be the case.
They're just doing it Chinesely.
Yeah, it may be the case that the Chinese actually sort of like show more flaws in what's going on. But we know that other countries try and influence also our political debate by financing existing outlets. This is going to sound crazy to people, but foreign nationals will finance existing outlets.
Echo Rusted Dragon, welcome. Been here but lurking. Did that send twice? Yeah, Twitch Mobile's a little bit weird, but it's all good. Heat, how's it going? Excuse me. This is the third time I've seen this particular part of the show.
That are already putting out stuff that is so toxic and harmful, and in some cases stupid, that they will support them, even if those outlets don't realize they're getting that money. Like, they're just so bad, they're already doing their work for them. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that there are actually outlets like that?
You're so cynical.
Go ahead.
Can you see the disc?
Howdy, howdy. Watched it live, then as a clip, and now. But it's good stuff. It is.
Don't show this garbage to their kids. If even 1% of our younger generation are being exposed to psychotic imagery and nonsense ideas, it is going to have a negative impact on this country in the future to the benefit of our adversaries. Our own platforms are bad enough with this stuff. We don't need TikTok doing the same thing.
Pause it.
Under the terms of the law.
What is outrageous? What is it, psychotic imagery? And what is it that I'd be more curious as to what he thinks is detrimental to this country that our adversaries are putting out? Like, is it like, I mean, I'm just trying to get myself in the head of an adversary, a foreign power. And if I was to go and let's say I didn't have the ability to own a platform that everybody's on, but I would choose different people who are already on that platform who are espousing stuff that is already detrimental to society, so they've further undermined society. What would I do? Oh, here's a handbook that's up on Yahoo. Put up a handbook on how to do this. Oh, wait, this is a news report. Oh, this is a news report about how an adversary, a foreign adversary, wanted to influence people and, I guess, harm our society by supporting existing voices on platforms who already they feel are basically...
Man, it never fails with these people. It never fails with these people. Every accusation is just a confession. It just never fails and never misses. Correct projection.
Doing their work for them, so we might as well just support these people. Why build our own company if it already exists? We can just buy it, essentially.
If even 1% of our kids are seeing this hysterical stuff from these people funded by our adversaries, it's a pretty concerning thing.
And let's be clear, you don't have to know that you're being supported by our adversaries to be doing all their dumb work. Like, the bottom line is, whatever you think TikTok is doing to our children, guess what? Russia thinks you're doing it to our children too.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, when he says, like, we already have enough of this, the only way to have addressed this, which we said on this show at the time, was to go after all of these companies with a comprehensive data privacy legislation. And instead we did this veer towards a nationalism. Yep. Actually, the problem is there's Chinese investors in it. And so we never actually addressed the fundamental issue.
Third-party internet service providers like Apple and Google will be penalized for supporting a ByteDance-owned TikTok after the January 19th deadline. If service providers and the App Store owners comply, consumers will unable, let's clear, copy editor guys, unable to install the necessary updates that make the app functional. So basically you'll have the app, you'd be able to use it, that's about it. Here's the issue. It's going to be off the App Store, so no new users. But TikTok is saying, so what? We're going to shut it down. The rumor is TikTok will direct all American users to a screen that just says, we have been shut down, blame your government. And you know what? It'll piss a lot of people off, but I'm excited for it. Young people are addicted to these short form platforms, and I think it is good and healthy to force them off. I got to be completely honest. If the algorithm was healthy and promoting good news and information, I'd support it. But I don't trust what China is doing with data collection.
Wait a minute. Hold on. What is good information? Because coming from Tim Pool, that is a bit of a red flag. So, like, I guess in Tim Pool's worldview, good information, good information just means stuff that you agree with. Womp womp, your Lord and Savior, Mr. T, just undercut your point by saving TikTok.
And the message they're sending to young people, largely woke garbage.
Okay, pause it.
There it is, woke garbage. Ground level news, welcome. Yeah, Tradwife content.
So obviously, Donald Trump, Tim Pool is very mad at Donald Trump today. We will find that out. We will report on that later because he's really pissed because he really thinks this is a good move. But again, why does he think the garbage that Russia would promote is any better or worse than the garbage that China would promote? They have basically completely aligned incentive structures, right? It's not like Russia has a special sauce about what they think will dumb down Americans.
He doesn't know good information if it crawls under his beak and dies. Do we know if Tim Pool has a diploma or GED? Unclear. But I would be willing to bet American dollars that he's not college educated at all.
Misinform Americans as opposed to the Chinese. I mean, for all we know, Tim Pool might be getting money from China unbeknownst to him. He's got a new benefactor, Francois Gillebrand is his new benefactor, and it turns out to be Chinese money. I mean, this is what happened to him with Russia. They identified Tim Pool is putting out garbage that is undermining people's sense of information, and we're just going to help him do it. We don't even have to convince him to do this stuff. He does it on his own. Tim doesn't understand what he is indicting himself here. If he is the mechanism for this garbage that Russia felt like that they were putting out, and he concedes that like foreign governments adversaries will try and undermine our society by putting out garbage. They're not going to just we don't have to produce it if it's already being produced for us with a guy without a Russian accent. Go ahead.
Have you noticed YouTube has way more ads than it used to? Here's how you can block them for free.
Oh, I'm just talking about high school. He doesn't have a diploma or GED? Yeah, I mean...
And developing this law.
That kind of
Make
tracks.
no mistake, my friends. Many people are basically saying that there's true information we can get from TikTok we can't get in the US. But there are other apps you can use that have free speech. Rumble allows people to say largely anything. You have BitChute. X is largely free speech. I said largely, it's not perfect. The issue I see with TikTok is that we can't access, we have no recourse, and it is not...
Pause it. What is the recourse we have for, Musk and his desire for everybody to have his heart?
The guy who exposed DMs of somebody who said he was bad at video gaming.
And it's a badge of honor. I had no idea. It just seemed that way. He quit school at 14, according to his source. According to this source. Wow.
And what is our...
I mean, that does kind of explain a lot, right?
Recourse there.
Got so much recourse with Mark Zuckerberg.
How is it different? I'm supposed to trust Elon Musk with all our data?
Because America.
Zuckerberg with our data?
They're patriots.
Tim Pool with informing people? I mean, the Russians sponsor him. They sponsor him. Well, honestly, if Tim Pool was a race car, he'd have on the back of the race car Russian disinfo. I didn't realize they put that decal on there.
I'm a victim.
I'm a victim. Somebody put a decal on my car. I took the money.
Keeping the money.
I took the money for it. I just didn't realize the decal would look like that.
Go on Rumble.
Yeah, training
Kids.
wheels.
I mean, and it's even worse. Like, look, if BP during the spill, let's say, came to me and said, we want to sponsor your show, Sam, they'd want to do it because they know that I'm out there and I'm shitting on them. And they want to have an opportunity to convince my listeners of something different. They're trying to whitewash their brand. If they're doing it surreptitiously, if BP is giving me money and I'm out there criticizing them, it doesn't make any sense. But if I'm already operating on behalf of BP or the fossil fuel industry or, whomever it is, and they pay me surreptitiously, even in a way that I don't know, that means that I'm really doing their job. It's actually sort of worse than taking money knowingly and transparently from the Russians. Or from our, let me just put it in his term, from our foreign adversaries.
Yep.
It's fascinating. I wonder if he feels like he has to do this because it's a way of like trying to cover up for the fact that he was basically working for the Russians. He didn't know he was.
Yeah, drape
but he
yourself
was
in the
doing
flag.
all of their work, which he says is nefarious.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
We can't access, we have no recourse, and it is not, we don't know what their intentions are. China may allow certain conversations, largely on Israel-Palestine. But they're not doing it because they want you to get good information. They're doing it because it is disruptive to the U.S.
Oh, pause.
Now, a lot of people in this country.
So, like, if you wanted to be disruptive to the U.S., let's say you were like our Russian adversary, you just find people who are doing conversations that are disruptive and problematic, as he says, to the U.S.
Talking about civil war all the time.
Yeah, interesting. Go ahead.
It because it is disruptive to the U.S. Now, a lot of people in this country are dissenters, and they want to rely on foreign adversaries for access to dissent. Americans have a right to speak, and X affords you that ability. It's imperfect, but it's good. It works. You're allowed to be on there.
What about Blue Sky?
Even many of these people who are Israel, who are complaining about losing their verification badges, can still post, and you can go on Rumble, much the same.
Fascinating. Fascinating. So I guess the real, the place where you get real free speech are these right-wing hellholes. Got it. Got it.
Quote.
Interesting, Tim.
That's interesting. That's got to be tough for him. Facebook automatically followed Trump and Vance on my behalf. Edward Gregorian. Oh, coincident.
It's interesting he mentions all those venture capitalists that invested in people like Dave Rubin and Tim Pool, like David Sachs, the Colin. Was it Colin or Locals with Dave Rubin that was eventually bought by Rumble?
Yeah, well, I mean, David Sachs is on Rumble, right?
Yep. Because Colin or Locals
and it's
got
not
bought.
like a crypto guy would have an agenda.
No. Venture capitalists, no.
And wouldn't control his algorithm to promote that.
The Silicon Valley Bank bailout proponent.
Edward Gregorian can't wait for a really fun half today. 20-minute poop club. I'm happy to report that as right now, 20 minutes or longer movements are not yet outlawed. What I fear the future holds, however, each executive order brings us one step closer to a sub 20-minute movement reality. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator, people who won't stop pissing and shitting themselves over 19-year-olds saying dumb chants on college campuses suddenly have nothing to say about this. I know, it's amazing. The ADL is a joke. A disgusting joke. Gerald from New Orleans. The Apartheid Defense League is bending over backwards to defend Musk's gesture to almost nobody's surprise.
Well, that's the irrelevant A word, not autism. It's he was born under apartheid.
Mike from Texas. With so many Texans on the IM, you owe us the next live show. Come on, make Austin happen.
That'd be cool.
Sleeping sleeper agent. He's the wealthiest person on the planet. You don't get that.
Apartheid Defense League. I like that. How are you holding up, ADT? I'm not great. I'm hanging in there. It's exhausting.
The title without going through tons of media training.
Doesn't help that. Doesn't help that I've had a runny nose all day. I think it's because I've been in the cold too much. That sucks. Yep, it's been bothering me all freaking day. So
he knows what he's doing. Jay Tingle. Bernie Sanders voted for his former colleague Mark Rubio for Secretary of State. Evidently, this vote is potentially beneficial to working families.
Yeah, not a fan of that one. Who didn't vote on that?
I think they all voted for him.
It was 990. What's the missing one? Is there someone out?
Maybe there's some Republican who didn't show up, or somebody was just out. Live free and die. Does Cozy Earth sweatpants go well with sweater vests? Not as bad as you would think. Jeffrey from Maryland, the ADL defending Musk, making a fascist salute is pretty on par.
I mean, Laura Ingraham did it in 2016, too.
Jimmy from Oxford. Majority McJora face. The movement to rename starts here. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our...
it does suck. It's annoying. Let's not forget the terrorist fist jab. Yep. This is the bad timeline, folks. This is the bad timeline. And it's frustrating because, like, I'm gonna have to like sit here and and cover all of this because it's important, you know. It's important. It's important that people know. It's important that people get informed about what's going on, and it should always be it should always be at the front and center of the conversation. Anyone know how to legally get out of a lease? Just asking for a friend. You would probably honestly, I would say, like, find a good you know, I would say consult a lawyer, and read the lease agreement. Read the lease agreement very, very carefully, and see how you can break the lease without it being too painful, or if you could make a clean break from the lease, that would be even better. Like, yeah, just read it as many times as you need to. As many times as you need to. Some leases will say that if you pay like a month and a half, you can make a clean break of rent. Some leases say that, like, if you whatever. I'm not sure. You really would have to read it. Some may not even have any stipulations. Who knows? Read the fine print. Yeah. Like, as many times as you need to. As many times as you need to. And if it's something that that's serious and needs to happen like now, like yesterday, then maybe consult a lawyer before before next rent. I was pre-law and I read it once. It looks bad, but I'll do it again. Yikes. Ooh. Yeah. Hey, maybe you'll find something there that you may have missed. I know it happens to me. All right, folks. Let's run through this real quick because I gotta get out of here. Trump puts all the U.S. government diversity staff on paid leave immediately. Wow, sticking it to the woke. Thank you. President Trump has ordered all U.S. government staff working on diversity, equity, and inclusion schemes to be put on immediate paid administrative leave. The White House confirmed that all federal DEI workers had to be put on leave by 17 Eastern on Wednesday, today, before the offices and programs in question were shut down. In an executive order issued on Tuesday, Trump also called for the end of the dangerous, demeaning, and immoral program. Sure, whatever, dude. Way to screw over a whole bunch of people out of jobs. So, yeah. How many places will basically catch on fire now? I wouldn't call a paid vacation a bad thing. Well, I mean, yeah, it's a paid vacation for now until they get rid of until they get rid of it. It is unclear how many people are going to be affected by this order. The American Federation of Government Employees, which represents 800,000 federal workers, said. Since his inauguration, the president has acted swiftly on a number of key pledges through a raft of unilateral actions. He repeatedly attacked DEI practices on the campaign trail, arguing that they were, quote, discriminatory. How it is unclear. In his inaugural address, Trump pledged to forge the one where the Nazi salute happened. It pledged to forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. Yeah, colorblind because it would be a white identitarian society. DEI programs aim to promote participation in the workplace by people from wide range of backgrounds. Their backers say they address historical underrepresentation and discrimination against certain groups, including racial minorities, but critics say that programs themselves can be discriminatory. On Tuesday, a memo was sent from the U.S. Office of Personnel Management to the heads of government agencies instructing them to place DEI employees on leave. The memo had a number of requests, including removal of public websites for DEI offices. By Thursday, federal agencies must comply a list of DEI offices and workers. By January 31st, agencies must submit a written plan for executing layoffs. White House Press Secretary Karen Leavitt said the move is another win for all Americans of all races, religions, and creeds, and fulfills a campaign promise made by Trump. Excellent. They knew he won. The resumes should have been out last year. The executive order requires federal hiring, promotions, and performance reviews to reward individual initiative rather than DEI-related factors. But, how does that even, is that even a thing? Because I'm pretty sure that, that this isn't, true at all. Whether it's, a federal job or, even a private, even in the private sector, you don't just get promotions, because of DEI related factors. Okay, you get promotions. Everyone knows. Everyone knows how you get promoted, and that's more often than not determined by not even merit or performance. It's by how you know, who you know, I should say. It's by who you know. In any case, I seriously doubt that the federal government is making promotions and hiring simply off of DEI-related factors. It just makes no sense. Have we checked that the Constitution is back up? No, it's still down. Gotcha. The LGBTQ page is down. The Spanish site is down. Man, this abortion access page is down. This is pretty freaking dystopic. Now I know obviously the information is not, gone, but man, that's kind of indicative as to the tone of this administration. It's also required them to take affirmative action to ensure equal opportunity during employment as opposed to previously. Revoking that order will have ripple effects in the federal and private sector, said Alvin Tillery, a political scientist and co-founder of the 2040 strategy group, which does DEI training in the private sector. He said that theoretically, a company with only white employees and now refuses to hire black people, Latinos, or women, for example, can go to federal court without showing that your process are compliant with federal diversity standards. It could also eliminate training programs aimed at curbing discrimination or reinforcing positive behavior. Cool. People are going to be ill-informed about what discrimination is and what it looks like. Yeah, I think that's kind of the point. So, yeah. Thanks, Trump. I thought I got this out of here. Hold on. No, why it's going so slow. Okay, we'll do this one last then. Yep, we'll just leave that last. Okay, U.S. homeowners in disaster-prone states face soaring insurance costs. The climate crisis is making it harder for insurance companies to operate, with many pausing or withdrawing policies. Yep, we've talked about this before, but it's only getting worse. Homeowners in the United States are facing an enormous financial crunch due to the climate crisis, with many struggling to find insurance or even dropping premiums that are soaring due to a mounting toll of wildfires, hurricanes, and other disasters. The federal government data shows the figures. The most comprehensive numbers ever released by the U.S. Treasury Department on the issue show insurance premiums are increasing quickly across the country, with people living amid the greatest climate-driven risk experiencing the steepest rises of all. Looking at you, Florida. Looking at you, California. Looking at you, Florida. In the 4 years to 2022, people living in the top 20% riskiest place for such perils paid on average 82% more than those in the 20% lowest climate risk zip codes. The climate crisis is making it harder for insurance companies to operate, with many pausing or completely withdrawing from disaster-prone states, such as Florida and California, which is currently being roiled by wildfires. More homeowners are now failing to pay their ballooning premiums, risking ruin if disaster hits, with insurers canceling at least 10% of policies in more than 150 risky zip codes in 2022. And I can only imagine this is probably going to get worse as time goes by. The analysis bolsters the previous findings that Americans are now facing starkly tangible climate costs, despite Donald Trump's contention that the climate crisis is a hoax and of little importance. Quote, "We are marching towards an uninsurable future," said David Jones, the former insurance commissioner of California. The climate crisis is driving an insurance crisis, right? Because the real problem here at the underlying, underneath of all this is capitalism. So here we are. This is the first comprehensive report by the government, and it shows that wherever climate change is landing as more severe weather events, it is causing greater insurance unavailability, higher insurance pricing, and greater insurance losses. Jones said that while the future doesn't look very bright on acting upon the climate crisis following Trump's election, the report makes a clear case to cut planet heating emissions. Right. I mean, like, we don't need we didn't need an insurance analysis of how bad things are to be like, yeah, we should probably address this. But it's bad. We've been saying this for some time now. The insurance crisis is a result of our failure to transition quickly from fossil fuels. Insurance is a canary in the coal mine in regard to the climate crisis, and the canary is now just about dead. The U.S. Treasury, I would argue that the canary has been dead for a while now at this point. The U.S. Treasury report released last week in the final days of Biden's administration is drawn from 330 insurers and the coverage offered to more than 246 million homeowners. 7 states, Florida, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, Indiana, Montana, and North Dakota, declined to take part in the study, while Texas didn't provide some data. Cool. So, I mean, like, Florida would be one of the key states that you'd want this information from. So, like, we're talking about a conservative, conservative leaning results, right? So it could actually be a lot worse, seeing as Florida and Louisiana are not included in this. It could be argued that it's actually probably the situation is worse. So this study or this report is on the more conservative end, I would say. This report identifies alarming trends of rising costs of insurance to consumers and insurers themselves, as well as lack of availability for insurance, all of which threaten the long-term prosperity of American families, said Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary under Biden. States are increasingly having to set up backup insurance options to cover residents as insurers decide to stop writing new policies or withdraw entirely from states. The Los Angeles fires, which may be the costliest fire event in California history, could push up premiums further or cause some insurers to leave the state. In Florida, even deregulation called for by the insurance industry, leading to sky-high rates for residents, has failed to tempt back insurers that have exited the state. The climate costs to insurance are felt elsewhere too, mostly around the hurricane-prone Gulf of Mexico, but also in places unused to such reductions, such as the Midwest, which has seen an increase in damaging storms. This all means that many Americans will increasingly face problems when buying new homes, which is true, because you need insurance, which is required to obtain mortgages. Others will struggle, and it's not like you can not. Chances are that most people do not have hundreds of thousands of dollars lying around to drop on a house cash. So either you put insurance on the home, or the mortgage company will put insurance on your home, and oftentimes, oftentimes it's more expensive than if you were to just kind of shop around. So, yeah. Others will struggle to pay rising premiums or fall back on strained state-based systems that will have to be supported by taxpayers. The climate crisis is posing a systemic risk to the financial system through insurance and housing, and it means it will get harder to get a mortgage and more people will be driven to state plans. We will have to shore up these plans because they're going to face problems when there's a catastrophic event. It's when, not if, unfortunately. None of this is going to get any better unless we address the climate crisis. We aren't going to be able to deregulate our way out of this, as Florida has shown. We have to address the underlying cause, which is climate change, right? And the driver of climate change is one of the main drivers is the fossil fuel industry. I would say the biggest driver, and that's not something that's going to happen anytime soon. Not under this administration. So apparently Don Quixote over here has is attempting to ban windmills. Not sure how that's going to play out for him, but wind is the largest U.S. source of renewable power and provides 10% of the nation's electricity, but growth has been slowed in recent years. It now faces hurdles with the executive order that at least temporarily halts leasing and permitting in federal lands and waters. More onshore development has been seen elsewhere. That map via the research firm Bloomberg NEF shows. Lack of federal oversight may save onshore wind. Its note finds wind has flourished in red states and has bipartisan support. Onshore projects on private lands can require federal approvals or consultation, like when sensitive species are involved. It's not immediately clear how the order might affect development in these areas. Of onshore wind projects, 99% are on private land, so they cannot be blocked by federal action. The American Clean Power Association offers the same stat in the Washington Post. Offshore projects which are in federal waters are more directly imperiled. The order bars new leasing. It does not take any immediate aims at projects already approved and under construction. But it launches a review of existing leases that could bring terminations or amendments. Overall, there's a significant uncertainty for 18 gigawatts worth of planned projects. Trump's move explicitly thwarts the recently greenlit Lava Ridge wind farm in Idaho, but Clearview Energy Partners say the phrasing could imperil approved offshore projects too. So I don't know why Trump is doing this, other than he is beholden to the fossil fuel industry and is just doing his best against renewable energy. So this just came out not that long ago. We're gonna quickly go over this before we call it. U.S. military to send additional 1,500 troops to the border. The U.S. military will send 1,500 additional active duty troops to the border. The White House said on Wednesday today, just 2 days after President Trump signed an executive order on immigration. These additional troops include 500 Marines as well as an Army helicopter crews and intelligence analysts. They will join the 2,200 active duty troops and thousands of National Guard that were on the border prior to Trump's inauguration. During his first term, Trump ordered 5,200 troops to help secure the border with Mexico. Democratic President Biden deployed active duty troops to the border as well. This comes off Trump's day one action to direct the Department of Defense to make Homeland Security a core mission of the agency. A separate official speaking on the condition of anonymity said there have been informal discussions about sending as many as 10,000 troops over time, but officials cautioned a final figure has not been determined and troop numbers would depend on several factors, including the impact on military readiness and what the Department of Homeland Security requests. Acting Defense Secretary Robert Salisi said the U.S. military would help provide flights for the Department of Homeland Security-led deportations of more than 5,000 immigrants held by U.S. authorities in El Paso, Texas, and San Diego, California. The DHS will provide in-flight law enforcement, and the State Department will obtain the requisite diplomatic clearances. A U.S. official briefing the Pentagon reporters on condition of anonymity said the additional 1,500 troops heading to the border were not seen having law enforcement capabilities. Trump, in his first day of office, declared illegal immigration a national emergency. Like, man, this is so, this is so absurd. How we couldn't have a declaration of a national emergency for the climate crisis, but like this guy, day one, declares a national emergency over illegal immigration. Fun fact: 1,500 jailbirds were released this week. Yeah, insurrectionary jailbirds. His January 20th executive order instructed the Pentagon to send as many troops as necessary to obtain complete operational control of the southern border. I mean, like, this is just insane. This is just insane. We'll keep track of how things develop, but this is just insane. There's no reason for any of this, and like, it's really, really, really angering that at any point, President Biden could have declared a national emergency for the climate and at least attempt to do something. At least pretend to think to care for one moment, and attempt to unleash some federal resources to address the climate crisis. And we couldn't even get that. Meanwhile, Trump on day one declares that the brown people coming over the border is a national emergency and is promptly like moving resources to wherever this quote national emergency is happening. Like, this is just so absurd to watch. But here we are. All right, folks, I got to get out of here. Thank you all for hanging out. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it. You guys are what makes this channel grow. Thank you for your support. If you want to continue to support the channel, there are many different ways of doing so. For the YouTube crew, keep liking the stream. I see you. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and subscribe to the Substack. There is a new article up, so go subscribe. It is free. Check out the merch store, and if you want to support the channel directly, hit !tip. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for hanging out, Ladybug. Appreciate it. Thank you. Join the Discord, folks, if you want to keep up with the channel. Let me get out of here. I appreciate all of you guys. We'll be back tomorrow about 5 p.m. Eastern. Thank you all. As always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya. Thank you, Michael Hassler. Thank you, Heat. It's good to be back in streams. Appreciate it. Yay, new bottle of booze in the house. Enjoy. All right, folks, hang tight. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.